Welcome back, Sebastian here. So, second team preview of today, and now I'll be looking at Mercedes. So, of course, Mercedes has been in the news quite a bit last couple of weeks. Of course, with Lewis Hamilton's big news that he's moving to Ferrari for 2025. Of course, there's still an entire season to compete in. So, of course, for Mercedes, their two drivers, Hamilton and Russell, will be trying to bring Mercedes back to the front for a championship challenge and drivers championship challenge this year. So for Hamilton, 39 years of age, last season he finished third in the drivers championship. He's going into his 18th season in Formula One and his 12th with Mercedes. For Russell, 25 but turning 26 tomorrow, so early happy birthday, George. He finished 8th in the drivers championship last year. This will be his 6th season F1 and of course his third with Mercedes. And of course, when you look at the career stats, of course for Lewis Hamilton, incredible stats, but for Russell, not too shabby himself, given that he's only starting out really in F1. So for Hamilton, 332 career races, 4,639.5 points, 197 podiums, 104 pole positions, 103 wins, and 7 championships. So for poles, wins, and championship, well, for poles and wins, he is the all-time leader, and for championships, of course, tied with Michael Schumacher. For Russell, 104 races, 469 points, 11 podiums, 1 pole, and 1 win. Both of those coming in 2022. And of course, for Russell, no championships yet. For Mercedes, I think last year was a bit of a disappointment. I think after 2022, and with how disappointing the start of the new regulations were, there was, I think, quite a bit of optimism that they would be able to be competing for the title, competing for regular wins in 2023. That should say 2023. I'm just gonna fix that, not 2022. There we go, 2023. But of course, that didn't happen. The zero pod concept that they basically tried to continue carry over for 2023 didn't work at all. Very difficult to set up, and so they were left with kind of a Franken car, where it was basically built for the zero pod concept, but had many different components that were basically not built for that car. So 2024 fresh slate. But I think that being said, before we've even had testing, I do think there will be some questions about how good this year's Mercedes is, given that Lewis Hamilton basically willingly signed for their direct rival Ferrari. So what has he seen in the simulator that he's unhappy with? We don't know. And maybe some of those questions may be answered in testing, but others we may have to wait until the opening races of the season. But for Mercedes, 2020, of course, their last double championship year, 573 points, first in the constructors, and they finished in the points 91% of the races. A very reliable, very fast car. 2021, 613.5 points, again, first in the constructors. In the points, 80% of the races. I was kind of surprised it was that low, given that they were one of the best cars. But for both Bottas and for Hamilton, they both had races that were complete stinkers, and they finished well outside the points. 2022, 515 points, third in the constructors. Finished in the points 89% of the races, which is somehow higher than 2021, despite the fact it was a much worse car. I think both drivers, Russell and Hamilton, got the most out of it. 2023, 409 points. They did move up to second in the constructors, passing Ferrari there, and they finished in the points 84% of the races. So of course, with kind of McLaren and Aston Martin kind of emerging as kind of joining that second group behind Red Bull, points finishes were much harder this year than 2022. Also, given by the fact that proved by the fact that their point total is quite a bit lower, over 100 points lower than 2022. So for Mercedes, I think it'll be a tough year. I think they'll be, trying to be in the same position I think Aston, McLaren, and Ferrari are all in, where they're trying to at least elevate themselves to being that consistent second team and taking the fight to Red Bull consistently. Maybe 4 to 5 wins, I think, would be not necessarily a success, but I think that would be a realistic best case scenario for many of these teams, Mercedes included. Of course, key personnel, team principal and CEO Toto Wolff has been there since 2013. Chief Technical Officer Mike Elliott been in there in his role since 2023. Of course, he was technical director prior to that, but then was basically demoted or promoted to chief technical officer when it was kind of very clear that some of the failings of the zero pod concept and that initial concept were not working. So he kind of had to take the blame for that. Technical director James Allison, since 2023, of course, was there for many years before that, in that role, before he went off to go and design sailboats. So for Mercedes, I think quite high expectations again. Probably fighting for higher up in that championship. Realistically, I think they'll be in that same fight as they were last year. But if things are really as bad as has been predicted online, that Hamilton looks at the car and says, I don't want to drive this car, who knows, maybe fifth, maybe sixth in the constructors. I think that's probably a worst case scenario. But that being said, should be a pretty exciting year. So there's my preview for Mercedes 2024 Formula One season. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.